That's Erik Johnson talking about his teammate Cale Makar and just the clinic that he's put on so far this postseason, and specifically the sweep of the Edmonton Oilers. Erik Johnson said he doesn't know what else to say about Cale Makar, but we have someone sitting in studio with us that I'm sure could continue to sing his praises. Luca of BarDown. First of all, just walk us through the range of emotions. You guys might have seen on Twitter, Instagram last night, Luca's reaction was posted, and it was kind of like a mimed reaction. You have a baby living upstairs?
Yes. So, well, that was, I went in and changed the caption after because a lot of people
thought you had a baby?
Yeah, a lot of people that just haven't had contact with for a while reached out and were like, "You have a kid now?"
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, no, I live in a triplex and the ceilings are very thin, so I'm not gonna yell and scream kind of thing. Yeah.
Like we
Very
stand a
considerate
respectful
of you.
king.
I don't know if I would have done the same, to be honest. I would have been hooting. I mean, I watch games outside on my deck with my family, and I'm hooting and hollering. It's like midnight, so I'm not as considerate as you, I think.
I feel like outside's different though. I
There's
don't know.
no laws.
Yeah, well, technically there are, actually. Was it past 11? But
Those are bylaws, not real.
sure, I don't know.
We gotta get our lawyer friend Daniel Pignataro
Oh, you're
on
so right.
to talk about that.
The range of emotions. Did you feel like it was slipping away at some points? Like you're down 2-0 in the third on the road.
It was weird.
Yeah.
It was weird. I kind of, like, when they were down 3-1, I was like, Mike Smith's in net. And so, like, this could go either way. We could absolutely come back, or we'll go to Game 5. Like, I felt like they were playing pretty well, and they gave up a couple goals, a couple power play goals, and that happens. Like, McDavid's amazing. Like, Draisaitl is going to make plays.
Yeah.
So I felt just like, you know what? They're playing well. If they win, they win. If they lose, let's get it at home ice, Game 5. Like, there's nothing in their play that concerned me to the point where I was just like, oh no, like the Oilers are doing something here, and it feels like they might win a couple. So, yeah, I wasn't shocked to see them come back, I guess.
Yeah, we were talking about it too, how, like, did it seem to you at all that they were missing Kadri? I mean, in a way, I guess you know that he's not playing, but, I mean, JT Compher seemed to step up pretty well in his absence.
I think the most noticeable difference, like, Burakovsky just doesn't look quite like himself, and I know he's been, like, a little injured.
He's banged up too.
Exactly, and so... But maybe it was just being bumped to the third line before the playoffs started. Like, he was primarily a top 6 guy for most of the year, if not all of the year, especially because the Avs had a lot of injuries. And then so you're fully healthy for the start of the playoffs. He moves down to a bottom 6 role, which he's not really played a lot. And then his production kind of fell off, and now you add the injuries. And so that's where I kind of noticed it, where with him, I've just been a little like, you want more from him. And he's stepped up in big games. Like with Washington, he had big goals in big games, and he's done it with the Avs too. So I feel like there's more there, but you're right. A lot of guys have stepped up in like that Kadri absence, and Compher's a really, really good example of that.
Yeah, everybody's looking for unsung heroes in the playoffs, and though the singing heroes have done it for the Avs, they've also had some unsung guys get OT winners and 5-second left winners. So
Helm won the draw last night. Like
and everybody was like forgetting that he played hockey before this postseason.
That's all you need though. Sometimes, like, just 2 big plays from those guys.
Totally,
right? And like, to bring it back to the Leafs, I suppose, you didn't get those plays from those depth players, right?
No.
You didn't have Pierre Engvall score a goal late in the game. You didn't get Mikheyev to score on something that wasn't an empty net. Spezza didn't get that big goal that sometimes he was accustomed to getting. You didn't get that out of Toronto.
I'm gonna cry right now, man.
But you got that out of Colorado. And Darren Helm, like, sent them to the conference final. Darren Helm won the draw to send them to the Stanley Cup final. Lehkonen scores that goal. So, you know, it just goes to show. And I was kind of bringing in parallels between those 2 clubs, the Leafs and the Avalanche. We were talking about this a little bit earlier too. And I want to flush it out a little bit because you could tell me more because you've lived it. You've been there. You're reading everything that Avalanche fans, whether it's on Twitter, on the message boards, whatever, The Athletic, that people are talking about. Do you see parallels for kind of the Maple Leafs and where they're at? And maybe this is where the Avalanche were a couple of years ago, but Colorado stayed the course, and finally they're being rewarded for it. Potentially, I see the Maple Leafs in a similar situation right now at a crossroads and potentially they could end up having the same success that Colorado did a couple years down the road.
I definitely do. And I feel like I've made the comparison of like the Leafs are just the second round, or the Avs are just the second round Leafs.
Yeah.
Because it's been the same. It's like, okay, you roll through this first round opponent that is clearly inferior the past few years, except for the Calgary one, which was a bit of a shock to a lot of people at the time because I think they finished first in the West that year, and Colorado was the second wildcard team. They beat them, whatever. But then you just implode in the second round. And like implode is, it's weird because I look at some of the losses, and like that Calgary year, they lose in 7 to San Jose, and like no one expected them to win that series, and they were in that game 7 to the Landeskog offside, like whatever you want to say. And then the Dallas game 7, Michael Hutchinson's in net for
oh man,
most of that series brutal for them. They're down to their third string goalie. It's in a
he
bubble.
won a game for them, didn't he?
He won a few games for them. Yeah, he and like. So that's another interesting one. Last year, I don't think there were any excuses. Like last year was the first one that felt like, okay, you were up 2-0 against Vegas. You blew them out of the water the first 2 games, and then you lose 4 straight and have no answer. And so I think the parallels are actually very similar as far as the outlook on the two teams, and also like staying the course and practicing patience with them, and like not blowing up your core, not making an irrational emotional trade to just kind of shake it up and see what happens. Like, I think there's something to be said about patience, and it's not the easiest thing to do, especially in this market, where I feel like as in Colorado, it might be a little easier. Like, the only criticism, so weird, after the first loss to St. Louis, like a writer in Denver compared Jared Bednar to like a Ken doll and says he just stands behind the bench and does nothing.
Oh yeah,
that actually happened, and I was like, what? Like, seriously? All right, like that's a spicy
That's
take.
an interesting take.
Yeah, and they've lost 1 game since that article came out, and it's just like, okay, it's sweet, like whatever. So I think, but he could have been fired. Like he came in, Patrick Waugh just suddenly resigns from the team. They hire him. No NHL coaching experience, no assistant coaching experience, a disaster of a year, and Sakic stuck with him. And he did not have to stick with him. Like, did not have to do that at all. And then, obviously, they've gone on this run, and I feel like there are very similar parallels.
Yeah, well, because, like,
the more I think about it.
Like, Jared Bednar, it's 3 straight years where they were out in the second round. Sheldon Keefe, this is 3 straight years that they've been out in the first round, and everyone wants him gone, right?
Yep.
Whereas Jared Bednar,
Bizarro
they decided,
years, too. Like, he had the half year and the COVID year.
Yeah,
and
this
then
is his first full season.
Yes.
Wow. It's crazy
that's
to me.
crazy, too.
Yeah.
First full season, and with Bruce Cassidy out, he's the 3rd longest tenured coach in the division now. Sheldon Keefe.
Wow, that's nuts.
DJ Smith, 2nd longest tenured coach.
Oh my gosh,
in this team.
That's
insane.
insane.
But anyways, John Cooper obviously number one. But they stayed the course and they kept it together.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Sakic believed in the core, believed in the team, and eventually this season they're getting rewarded for it. The job's not done, obviously, and Gabe Landeskog said that last night pretty eloquently. And just you think eventually, potentially, that could be the route that the Maple Leafs could end up going in if they just stay the course, stay patient, and hopefully those superstars, was it last year Nathan McKinnon came out and said, I haven't won anything. We haven't done anything.
Yeah.
And then this year looked like a man possessed in the postseason.
He still does.
Yeah.
Wouldn't even crack a smile.
No,
I know.
No,
Last
touches the
night.
cup but doesn't crack a smile.
No.
I'm pretty sure there was like another lip reading thing of I forget who tweeted it.
That was a
but
hilarious video.
I think there was that one, and then when they're all around the trophy, it's just a shot on McKinnon, and I feel like you can see him saying no smiling.
Don't smile.
Yeah, or don't smile. And so it's
He
just
wants
like
to make it clear.
amazing, right?
Yeah.
But you got to think that eventually Austin Matthews is going to get to that. I'm pissed. I've been in the league so many years and I haven't won anything. Hopefully, he's still with Toronto at
as
this
long as
point.
he's still
I know
in the
you're
league.
looking at me.
I know.
you're looking at me.
I'm sweating.
But hopefully, he's still with them, and he has that year where he goes off and takes the Leafs to the promised land. Like that's how I'm looking at this team with after Colorado's success that they've had this year. As a Maple Leaf fan, if the Leafs stay the course, I look at the Avalanche success story, and it makes me feel a little bit better about Toronto's situation.
I think it should. I think it definitely should. And like the you mentioned like the depth pieces too, and like that's where the margins kind of like you can swap guys in and out year after year. Like we saw the extreme old age Thornton kind of they tried that whole thing and that didn't work, and then they replaced those guys this year and brought in a kind of different group in your bottom 6, and then next year like you can always add from within too, like Sandin and Liljegren playing bigger roles, and then Nick Robertson, is he going to step up and finally take one of those top 6 spots and get an opportunity to show what he's all about? Like, that just happens. And so, like, I think when you look at the Avs, too, the trade deadline additions they made, it wasn't anyone splashy. Like, I wanted them to obviously get Claude Giroux, of course. Like, who wouldn't? But you add Josh Manson, and that's just more defensive depth. And they've needed that with Girard out. And they add Cogliano, who's got 2 game-winning goals this postseason and has added something to the penalty kill in the 4th line. And then Nico Sturm and Lehkonen, like, guys that...
If you ask Nate McKinney, give up 10 first-round picks.
Exactly. I would too. Like, what? He's been unbelievable. But sometimes I guess it just shows that, like, when you do have that established core, which is amazing, add around the margins and hopefully you get the right pieces and it works out.
The only rebuttal I have to that comparison is, one, the contracts. Like, nobody on the Leafs took the discount that the guys in the Avs did, so it's a little bit hard to do that fringe work. And then, like, they got Cale Makar in the fold, and the Leafs, I'm not sure have anyone like that in the fold. A big parallel that I will draw between the Leafs and the Avs, though, is that they both have some question goaltending.
Yes.
They both have excellent teams. I don't really mean question. I mean, they both don't have a franchise goaltender.
Yes.
A real clear number one, the way that we're seeing go down kind of in the Eastern Conference Final right now. So, AB and I were having this conversation right before we brought you on. How does that... I know that the Avs are totally in business mode. They won't be affected by anything right now, but there's got to be a little thought in maybe not the players' heads, but the people around the team, that the goaltending match in the Stanley Cup Final probably isn't going to be close. So how does that make you feel?
I don't know. I feel okay with Vasilevsky for some reason, and I don't know if it's just
he's looked a little human here and there.
He has, and like the whole
not a beast I want to poke though.
No, he's not. But the whole blocker side thing is just like how many goals he allow. I'm just like, whoa, Nathan McKinnon plays that spot on the power play. Okay, we might be able to get some by him.
Shesterkin's been yanked a couple times this postseason.
He has, but I'm pretty sure it's since Game 5 of that Penguin series, he's got a .940 save percentage, and like it's just unbelievable. And I'm like, if there's a goal, I would take the Rangers. Like, I want to face the Rangers out of the 2 teams because I feel like the Avs have the advantage. I mean, I feel like the Avs are the better team regardless of who they face. But the Rangers, just their style of play, whatever, like, I mean, everyone's been calling them frauds. They're in the Eastern Conference Final. I'll still call them a fraud, but it's...
I got futures on the Rangers.
A formal... I think BarDown, the podcast, is issuing a formal apology because of all the Rangers slander.
I'm not.
No
deal. But I'm scared
frauds.
of Shesterkin. Like, how could you not be?
Yeah.
And he can clearly win you more than a series. He can win you a Stanley Cup. That's how they play. They're comfortable being like, okay, make 1 million saves. Stand on your head. You can do it.
He's having like a Jaguar level postseason.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, and that guy, he took that Ducks team to the final. Ultimately, they lost. But that's what I get out of him. Somebody who is very clearly the guy who's keeping their team in it. Like, they're being outplayed. Go look at the expected numbers. Tampa is completely outplaying them through this series. But it's the Rangers got a 2-1 lead. It's because of that guy right there. Before we let you go, Luca, I do want to ask a question about Cale Makar. We brought you in talking about him, and the Bobby Orr comparisons are being thrown out yesterday. I think it's a little premature to have that discussion.
It's just tough when it's Wayne Gretzky that throws it out there.
No.
Like, am I going to argue with that guy? Like, I'm going to argue with that guy.
Yeah, I think I understand, like, this is the first guy who I could sit there and say maybe he actually could become Bobby Orr, but he's not quite there yet. But when you look at him amongst the league's best players, not just defensemen, but best players, I mean, where are you ranking Cale Makar right now? I think he's top 5?
I would say top 5. Like, I'd be pretty comfortable saying top 3.
Really?
Like, McDavid, Matthews. Yeah. Those guys are
1-2.
1-2 in my mind. And then, like, he might be
Makar coming at 3?
Be 3, just because he's a defenseman that can basically put up all of these. Like, he leads the Avs in points right now.
Yeah.
Just what he's been doing has been unbelievable. I know I had a tweet of just like points per game in a single playoff run, and only Bobby Orr and Paul Coffey have had better single postseason runs at points per game than him. And like
in scoring eras, that.
Yeah, and like it's just nuts. I don't know. I'm trying to like rack my brain around what guys I've seen that are similarly dynamic on offense, and like I don't know why the only name coming to my mind is like Mike Green in his prime.
Yeah,
he was absolutely and he was just electric every time he touched the puck on the power play.
The year that
Erik Karlsson as well. Yeah, he was the other one that was in my mind too. Makar's got the same amount of playoff points as him.
But that's why I think it's a little premature to talk about Cale Makar as Bobby Orr, because there's longevity there that sure needs to come, and if he can stay healthy, I think he could approach that status, that tier of the best to ever play it, which is just astounding for us to sit here and be able to watch some of the best players. I mean, we had the Quizmaster. Yeah. The Quizmaster just talked about how Connor McDavid may be the best player ever over Wayne Gretzky, and now we're talking about Makar potentially being Bobby Orr-esque level defenseman, and we just got to see them battle it out in a series. It was spectacular.
Yeah.
It was spectacular, and hockey's in good hands with a lot of elite talent. Luca, really appreciate taking the time, pal. I'm sure we'll be chatting again next week as your Avs coast on through to the Stanley Cup Final.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm so excited.